The grand wedding of Marcus Williams and Amara Davis was a celebration unlike any other, held at a lavish estate surrounded by sprawling gardens. Every detail had been meticulously planned to perfection. Guests, dressed in high-end designer attire, sipped champagne beneath a canopy of twinkling fairy lights. The soft melodic tunes of a live orchestra provided a soundtrack to the evening, filling the air with an air of romance and sophistication. Friends and family laughed and mingled, enjoying the splendor of the event, while the stunning couple stood at the center, basking in the joy of their union. Marcus, the 25-year-old groom, looked every bit the part of a young man who had everything going for him. His crisp white tuxedo gleamed under the soft lighting, and his confident smile shone as he greeted family and friends. He was charming, charismatic, and enjoyed the attention he received as the focus of the celebration. However, beneath his polished exterior, Marcus carried a deep sense of entitlement that often came across as arrogance. He had grown up with wealth and privilege, and at times, he assumed that the world owed him everything. As the night went on, Marcus moved through the crowd, laughing with his groomsmen and greeting distant relatives. His attention was momentarily drawn to the gleam of a gold watch on his wrist. The watch had been a gift from his grandfather, a family heirloom that symbolized his family's legacy of success. Marcus never took it off, and he wore it with pride. The watch was a symbol of everything that had come before him: wealth, status, and power. When the cocktail hour began, Marcus placed the watch on the corner of a table near the wedding cake while adjusting his cufflinks. His attention was diverted when a guest called his name, and he moved away from the table with the intention of returning to retrieve the watch. But when he returned moments later, it was gone. Marcus's heart sank as he scanned the table, moving aside napkins and champagne flutes in growing frustration. The watch, his prized possession, was nowhere to be found. "Where is it?" he muttered to himself, his brow furrowing. Panic began to set in. He quickly called over his best man, Jason, who had been chatting with guests nearby. "Jason, the watch, it's gone. I put it here, and now it's not here. Someone must have taken it." Jason looked around the crowded room. "Are you sure you left it here?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "I'm sure," Marcus snapped, his voice low but tense. "I put it right here, on this corner. Someone took it. There's no other explanation." His gaze drifted across the room, landing on a tall, composed man near the buffet table. The man was dressed in a tailored black suit, his polished shoes gleaming under the lights. He carried himself with quiet confidence, his expression calm as he chatted with another guest. This was Elijah Carter, a man Marcus didn't recognize. The lack of familiarity only fueled his suspicion. "Jason," Marcus said, narrowing his eyes at Elijah. "I don't know who he is, but I bet he knows something about this. He's the only person I don't know here." Jason hesitated. "Marcus, don't jump to conclusions. It could have been misplaced. Let's not accuse anyone just yet." But Marcus wasn't listening. The anger and frustration clouded his judgment as he stormed across the room, his footsteps purposeful and deliberate. The lively conversations around him began to quiet as guests noticed his determined expression. By the time he reached Elijah, several people had stopped talking. Their curiosity piqued. "You," Marcus called out, his tone sharp and accusatory. "Did you see a gold watch on that table over there?" Elijah turned to face him, his expression calm and composed. "I didn't see anything like that," he said evenly, his voice polite but firm. Marcus crossed his arms, his frustration mounting. "Really? Because it's funny how it disappeared. And you're the only person here I don't know. Are you sure you don't know anything about it?" Elijah's expression remained unchanged, though a flicker of irritation passed through his eyes. "I'm certain I haven't touched your watch," he replied calmly. The room fell silent as the confrontation unfolded. Amara, Marcus's bride, stood nearby with her bridesmaids, her face a mix of disbelief and concern. "Marcus, what are you doing?" she whispered, hurrying to his side. But Marcus ignored her. His frustration had boiled over, and he wasn't ready to back down. "You're saying you didn't see it, but how do I know you're telling the truth? People like you always think they can get away with things." he said, the words coming out like a slap in the face. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, and the tension in the air thickened. Elijah's calm demeanor faltered for just a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. He took a step closer to Marcus, his towering frame imposing but not threatening. I would suggest you rethink your words, Elijah said quietly, his voice firm, but not angry. Not for my sake, but for your own. Marcus scoffed, his arrogance unchecked. I don't care who you are. You don't belong here. Elijah's expression didn't change, but there was a certain calm authority in his voice that caught the attention of everyone nearby. I suggest you apologize, he said simply. But before Marcus could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. Marcus, that's enough, a commanding voice said. It was Richard Thompson, Marcus's father. His presence was imposing, and he quickly moved through the crowd, his face a mixture of anger and disappointment. Dad, Marcus began, but Richard silenced him with a sharp wave of his hand. Not another word, Richard said firmly. He turned to Elijah, his expression softening. Mr. Carter, I am so sorry for my son's behavior. Elijah, ever the composed individual, nodded politely. Apology accepted. Mr. Thompson, he said, but perhaps your son should be the one to apologize. Richard turned to Marcus, his voice cold with disappointment. Do you even know who this man is? He demanded. Marcus hesitated, his mind reeling as the weight of the situation began to sink in. No, but, he stammered. This is Elijah Carter, Richard said, his voice firm and proud. One of the most successful business tycoons in the city. The man who helped save our company when we were on the brink of financial ruin. Marcus's jaw dropped. His eyes widened in disbelief. The man he had just accused of stealing his watch was not only a guest at his wedding, but a crucial figure in his family's success. Wait, what? Marcus stammered, his face turning pale. Yes, Richard continued. Years ago, when no one else would help me, Mr. Carter believed in me. He loaned me the funds we needed to stay afloat. Without him, we wouldn't have what we have today. Marcus stood frozen, his mind spinning as the realization hit him. Elijah Carter, the man he had so casually humiliated, was the reason his family had been able to rebuild their wealth and success. The entire room had gone silent, the weight of Richard's words hanging heavy in the air. Marcus felt the ground beneath him shift, his arrogance crumbling under the weight of the truth. He opened his mouth, trying to find words, but they didn't come. Richard continued, his tone sharper now. And you? What you did tonight was disgraceful. Marcus, you let your own biases cloud your judgment, and you assumed the worst about someone who has done nothing but good for our family. Do you understand how wrong that is? Marcus lowered his head, unable to meet his father's gaze. The guilt settled deep in his chest, heavy and suffocating. Richard turned to Elijah, his expression softening. I'm so sorry, Mr. Carter, for everything. Elijah smiled faintly. It's all right, Mr. Thompson, but your son needs to understand that actions speak louder than words. It's not just about what happened tonight. It's about what happens next. Freddie looked at Elijah, his voice trembling. I'm sorry, I was wrong. And I can't excuse what I said and did. I let my own ignorance guide my actions. And I treated you unfairly. I promise. I'll do better. Elijah extended his hand to Freddie, his grip firm. Apology accepted. The guests, who had been holding their breath throughout the entire ordeal, now erupted into applause. The tension in the room evaporated, replaced by a sense of hope and reconciliation. Freddie's father, Richard, placed a hand on his son's shoulder, his expression filled with pride. You've made a start, Freddie, Richard said. Now, it's time to show everyone who you really are. As the night wore on, Freddie felt a renewed sense of clarity. He had learned a powerful lesson, one that would shape the rest of his life. The road ahead would be long, but he was ready to walk it. At the reception, as Freddie and CLA shared their first dance, Freddie whispered in her ear, I'll be better, I promise. CLA smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning of Freddie's journey. The wedding had been a beautiful celebration of love, But now it had become something far more significant, a turning point in Freddie's life.